Hi, this hands-on experiment, part of the resetonline.org program, is intended to introduce to the students several concepts. One is the hydrologic cycle. These are elementary school students. I use this in 4th and 5th grade. So depending upon my read of what the students have learned already, I might not use the word hydrologic cycle in my presentation. And the other concept that I want to introduce to the students through some hands-on experience is air pressure. And let me just start by showing you the vocabulary that I use in this session. I try to limit this to 4 or 5 words per session in terms of new vocabulary, words and phrases. This particular session I use evaporation, condensation, precipitation, and air pressure. Let me cover the air pressure part first, because that's relatively quick. Air pressure, I explain, is all around us. It's created by the weight of air pressing from all directions on us. And it's kind of a difficult concept because we can't see it and we can't feel it, but it's there. And the basic demonstration I use for that is I bring a bucket into the classroom with water in it. I use 5-ounce cups. I want something that's small enough that the students can make this work themselves with small hands. I have them fill the cup with water, place a piece of paper, can be a piece of bond paper. I tend to use index cards because it's easier for the students to create a seal with the rim of the glass that way. I have them place their hand across the top of the cup and the index card, and then they flip it over, and then they take their hand away. The point I want them to appreciate is that the water stays in the glass. It's kind of counterintuitive for a lot of these students, and even for some of the adults that I've worked with this on. And of course, what's happening here is the air pressure is pushing up on the piece of paper with a force that exceeds the force of gravity that is pulling the water down. If you break the seal, the water will fall into the bucket. So that's the air pressure concept that we'll be working today. And then we work with the hydrologic cycle, and I have the students make a cloud in a bottle as part of that. And here's a note from a student. Thank you for helping us with science. I hope you come back to visit us today. You are the best science teacher in the whole world. You taught me a lot of scientific things for 6 days, and I have learned to make a cloud. Your friend, Raylan. And Raylan has a little self-portrait there. So the point I want to make in reading that is that it's a lot of fun working with these young students and seeing how excited they get about learning about science. So the hydrologic cycle. If I think of it a few weeks before I do this class, I'll have the students, or I'll put water into a transparent glass and mark with a magic marker, I don't know if you can see it, the level of water in the glass. Then I'll just let it sit in the classroom for a few weeks, and then the day of this experiment I'll hold it up again. We'll note that the level of the water has declined, and that's how I introduce the concept of evaporation. And what's really happening here, and this also leads to a discussion of the phases of matter, is that the molecules, I may use the word molecule or may not, depending upon the age levels. I often just say small, tiny pieces of water, so small we can't even see them. They are around the surface of the water, and they get excited and they hop into the air, and they become pieces of gas as opposed to pieces of liquid. And of course that's the second phase that we talk about in this experiment. And I also explain that there's water in the air all around us. We can't see it, we can't feel it, but it's there. And another way we can illustrate this is have the students fill a cup with ice water and just let it sit there while you're doing some of your teaching. And later on in the session I'll have them take their finger and rub it against the side of the glass, and if it's moist enough in the air, they'll see the liquid on their finger, and then I ask them where do they think that liquid came from. Despite the theories that many have, it did not bleed through the glass, but it is in the air around the glass. Because the glass is cooler than the air, that the small little tiny pieces of water that are a gas hop onto the side of that are in a gas phase, hop onto the side of the glass and turn back into a liquid phase. So that then leads into the concept of condensation, evaporation, condensation, and then we get into discussing what happens when these small little tiny pieces of water that are a gas, not a liquid, are in the air and they go up, they rise higher and higher in altitude, and when they get way up in the sky, the conditions are such that it's cooler and there is lower pressure, and those are conditions that will make the water turn back from a gas into a liquid. And the way this works is there are little tiny pieces of smoke of dust in the air, and the water that's as a gas will jump onto these little pieces of dust and smoke and turn back into a liquid. And then other little pieces of gas that are water will hop onto that same one, and they keep hopping on and hopping on until the drop gets so heavy that it falls from the sky. And I ask the students to identify what this is. Earlier I do ask them to identify what it might look like in the sky to have this condensation going on, and try to get them to talk to identify clouds as what they see in the sky that represents that I was going to say phenomenon. What represents what happens when these gas molecules go up higher in altitude. And then that brings in the final vocabulary word, which is precipitation in the hydrologic cycle, and talk about that precipitation can come down as rain or sleet or snow. Then what I have the students do is make a cloud in a bottle. And this is a little bit different in terms of classroom setup than most of my experiments. Instead of dividing the class into groups of 4 or 5 and have each of them replicate the same experiment, I break the class into 2 groups. And I'll have the teacher work with half of the class on this experiment in terms of air pressure, letting each student see if they can demonstrate that how that works with the cup of water and the piece of paper or the index card. And then I'll work with the other half of class on making a cloud in a bottle. And the way that works is have a cork with an inflation needle used for sports balls going through the center of the cork. I assemble that by nailing a nail through the center of the cork and then taking the nail out and pushing the needle through. I want to create a seal, tight seal, so the air cannot escape around the needle itself. So using that nail is a good way to do that. Then taking a bike pump, and I just have to step out for a second to get my bottle. This is a 2-liter bottle. It has about 4 inches of hot water in the bottom of it. And place the cork with the bike pump attached into the top of this 2-liter bottle. Have to make sure that the cork is the correct size to make that seal. And then by pumping